4 different mallets, different materials, different techniques, different tools. Let's get started. This is a chunk of brass. It's 1 inch square, about 5 inches long. It weighs in at a hefty 1.5 pounds. I'm gonna turn this into one of those little mini chisel mallets. And I'm gonna start with the metal because, well, I'm already holding it. At the drill press, and I clamp my block onto my fence so that doesn't go anywhere, and I put a 1/8 inch bit in here so I could drill a pilot hole. Then once that's drilled out, I could drill it with this bigger dude here. Now I'm not gonna drill all the way through, just mostly all the way through. And then I've got a little bit of oil, a little bit of squirt when needed. It was easy sailing when it came to drilling. The hole looks pretty clean. Now I'm gonna take this 1/2 inch diameter tap and I'm going to put some threads into this hole. Then I can screw in a threaded rod and that connects to the handle. Threads are done, so now we need to work on a handle. I've got this gnarly piece of walnut here. Pretty nasty, but I think there might be like a good chunk of wood just like right over here. It looks like it's got some cool figure in it, but we'll never know until I start chopping it up. Remember this little guy? This was my completely terrible $10 lathe. So if you haven't seen that video, you might want to check it out. It was one of my favorite videos so far this year because it was so stupid. All right, I am going to try to turn this on this lathe. I don't know if this is gonna work. This is kind of big and kind of heavy, and this is kind of crappy. I took some threaded rod, cut off a small piece, and then I drilled a 1/2 inch diameter hole down the center of my handle. So that's all done. So now the plan is to glue that threaded rod down into the handle. Look how gorgeous this is. Oh, that handle. That doesn't have any finish on it yet. That looks really cool. As far as the mallet head goes, I'm going to set this off to the side. And then whenever I do the other metal work for the other mallets, then I'll cut it and clean it up with those. That's just gonna save a little bit of effort there. Next one is aluminum. I got this block of aluminum. It is about 1.25 inches thick, about 2 inches wide and 4 inches long, and weighs in at about 1 pound. Theoretically, I could just use the block as it is as the mallet, but I think I'm gonna cut it down the middle and make it kind of close to the other brass one that I did, but I want to do a different design. Instead of having the little stubby handle so it all fits in your hand, thinking I'm going to do a longer handle. Maybe a lighter wood would look good with this one. I'm still going to do the threaded rod like the last one, but this time I'm not going to turn the handle. Instead, I'm going to use just the table saw and the router table. Over at the router table, I put a 3/8 inch round over bit so I can hit all the corners of this, do a little bit of sanding, and then put a threaded rod down the middle of it. You could cut non-ferrous metals at the table saw, and you could pretty much just use your regular table saw blade to do that too. Now, what I'm going to do is use a metal cutting blade because it's just going to be a little bit easier and I don't want to dull my traditional blade I use for wood. Here's a little tip for you just in case you didn't know it. You can use a circular saw blade in your table saw. Now, what I've noticed is for some blades like this is a metal cutting blade, there are a lot of options for circular saw blades, but not a ton for table saw blades, or if there are, they get kind of expensive. But I can run a circular saw blade in my saw. The only thing is I lose the capacity, as in it doesn't go up as high as a 10-inch blade, but I'm not sweating it because I'm cutting stuff that's 1 to 2 inches. So not a big deal at all. So I got the blade in here. I will put a link down in the description below for the blade, for all the metals, all that kind of stuff. Just know you could probably get them cheaper if you find some local metal dealer near you. But if you don't want to deal with all that and you just want to order something online, I'll drop some links down there and you can check them out and see if they work for you. Okay, this brass one is probably my favorite. I decided to make another design change compared to the brass mallet. For the aluminum one, I'm gonna round over the edges using this little 1/8 inch roundover bit. Now this is a really small bit, but I'm still gonna make multiple passes to sneak up on it because, well, I really don't want the aluminum to go flying and rip my face off. I'm digging the aluminum one. That one might be my favorite. I'm really excited about this next one because I'm gonna go completely out of my wheelhouse. Stainless steel. Now I have worked with some projects involving steel, not stainless. This is gonna be a whole new thing for me. So I figure if I can pull it off, you can pull it off. I got a steel bar that is 1 inch in diameter, 12 inches long, and weighs in at a hefty 2.7 pounds. This thing is a beast. We don't need all of this, thankfully. Not only am I going to use a metal that I've never worked with, but everything else I want to change it up to. So for this one, I'm going to cut off a piece of this. I think I'm going to keep it kind of small, maybe about 3 inches or so in length. To make sure that the rod stays in place, I'm going to take a wooden block, drill a 1-inch hole in that, and then I can put my metal rod into that. And that's going to keep the rod in place. Unlike the brass and the aluminum, I'm not going to drill a hole and then tap threads in it. Instead, with this one, I'm gonna drill all the way through it. Once all the drilling's done, I can then clean it up using a sander. Most of the steel work is done. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on the handle because I figure I'll probably have to clean up some of this steel whenever it's all said and done. As far as the handles go, good thing about these mallets is I could use scraps and stuff like this. So I'm gonna go with an oak piece for this one. I'm not gonna turn it. Instead, what I'm gonna do is make the handle completely round. Figure that would be a different shape than the other ones because we had the short one that I turned. We had the one that was more rectangular. This one's gonna be completely round. Then I gotta figure out how to make the handle fit all the way through the head of the mallet. I want the end of my handle to have a smaller diameter than the part that you actually hold. There's a couple ways to do that, but this is a method that I'm gonna try out, which is I drilled a hole in a block here and my handle fits inside that hole. I put a stop block on my table saw. So I clamped all this to my miter gauge and I can push this up and then it butts against the stop block so it won't go anywhere. And I put the blade up so it just kisses the tip of that handle. And then I can spin the handle around, and as I do, it's gonna chip away at it, and I just raise the blade up and raise the blade up until I get the diameter that I want. Theoretically. We'll see. I cut a notch at the end of my handle and then cut a little wedge out of the same piece of oak and then hammered that thing into place, did some sanding on it. This is insane. Maybe this one is my favorite. I know I felt like the others were my favorite too, but this one, I love this one so much. I don't even know what to do with it. I just want to hit stuff with it. For the last one, I'm going to change it up again. Instead of doing a metal, I'm going to do all wood. And instead of having a horizontal head in the handle, I'm going to have it all flow together, something like this. I want a much smaller version of this though. I want something that kind of just fits in your hand, really easy for doing chisel work. So this is what I'm thinking. It's really 2 sections, but both of them need to be somewhat round. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the handle on the lathe to try to get a basic profile to it. Something kind of simple, doesn't need to go crazy with this. But for the head, I'm just gonna cut a basic block of wood, round over all the corners at the router table, and then just chuck it up in the drill press and do the shaping of it with just some coarse sandpaper and sand through all the grits until I get the smoothness that I want. Wooden mallet's done, the perfect size for just whacking stuff, and I'm really looking forward to applying the finish to this one, especially that figured maple. I think that's gonna look really good. And when it comes to finishing things like this, I prefer to shy away from the film finishes because I want something that's easy to fix. So what I'm gonna do is go with a teak oil so I can flood it on the surface, let it penetrate, wipe off the excess, come and apply a second coat to it, and then just let it sit for the rest of the day. thing is while it's not as durable as a film finish, these are tools. They're gonna get beat up, they're gonna get knocked around. So it's easy to just do a little bit of sanding and throw on another coat of oil on it compared to trying to fix, repair, replenish, refinish a film finish. That was a lot of stuff to say. When it comes to the metal, like the brass, I just put a little bit of polish on it, some wax, something like that, just so that it doesn't tarnish, and that's perfectly fine. I've also done certain film finishes like poly or lacquer or shellac on brass and aluminum. No issues whatsoever. Oh, that looks so good. I chainsaw milled this too. Oh, that walnut is bonkers. Ooh. If you didn't notice, I also did figure, even in the oak, we've got some figure in there because, you know, we fancy. Four different mallets, all different materials, different tools, different techniques. Hopefully you got something out of this, and to meet again, get in your shop and build something awesome. This is my favorite.